Hey, it's me, Kevin Van Horn. I am back here again with some more folks from BioWare, in this case, Gordon Rich, and we are going to take a look at Star Wars The Old Republic, another game that we're all very excited to see. So without further ado, I just want to throw it over to you and let you talk free form about Star Wars The Old Republic. We know it's an MMO, we know it's in the Star Wars universe. Tell us even more, whet our appetites.
Well, I think that, Star Wars The Old Republic is, obviously a Star Wars game that follows on our previous game, Knights of the Old Republic. So we decided that that was a great period of Star Wars history to work in. We got together with Lucas and decided it was a great collaborative effort to put on. So using both the storytelling, expertise that BioWare has and the storytelling expertise that Lucas brings, we thought we could do justice to really making a game that would be a completely different play experience than any MMO that people have played to date.
And the great thing about moving it 2,700 years before the movies is we have a lot of latitude to do what we need to do without interfering with canon being around the movies.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about how story is going to be involved. Obviously, that's a big deal for a massively multiplayer game. What kind of challenges have you run into, and how should we expect the story to evolve as we play?
Well, I think that the challenges are legion. There's no doubt about that, because we have to basically sustain a story for every class for hundreds of hours. And to do that, we in the end decided that we needed to fully voice over every NPC and every character in the game, so that we could actually deliver the compelling experience to the player that would keep them playing throughout that time without it ever feeling like a grind. It's something new, there's always something new to experience during that long gameplay, which MMOs are so well known for. The other thing that's interesting about our story is that it's not one story for every class, it's many stories based on the choices you make along the way. So in BioWare games, we like to say that story choices have consequences to your character and to your overall character arc. And that's what we've endeavored to bring to this particular game.
We actually are bringing what we call, I consider it like the silent movies versus the talkies. Most MMOs you read text, and we just putting the voice, the talkie side, bringing a lot of emotion into our storytelling by doing the voiceover. It just makes it a whole different experience.
Now, obviously, we all like to play around with our different races and whatnot in Star Wars. How many different playable races will there be in the Old Republic?
There will be 8.
8.
Yes.
And can you tell us what they are?
No, we can't.
Oh,
We're talking about classes or races?
No, we're talking about classes.
Oh yeah, so we haven't actually announced the race stuff yet. So pay no attention to the man on my right.
Well, at least can you tell us about some of the locations? I mean, surely there's some iconic locations that we're going to get to.
We've only announced a couple, 3 of the planets. We do have a lot more planets to announce, and all those are going to be coming out over this year. So what I will say is that you're going to see some very familiar Star Wars planets, and you're going to see some planets you've never seen before in a Star Wars game. Like at the show, we showed Hutta, which is a planet that's never been fully realized in a Star Wars game before. And again, working with Lucas, they really helped us come up with a full realization of this planet, which was never in a movie.
Right.
Now, we've looked a little bit about the places then. What other kind of surprises will you have in store? I mean, obviously, they're not surprises if you tell us, but what else do you think is really important for us to know that is going to get our heart pumping?
Well, I think one of the things that people are going to realize in our game, especially when they start to see the gameplay footage come out, is how compelling the storytelling aspect and our combat. Our combat is very action-oriented. It makes you feel like you are a Jedi or are a bounty hunter. And there's a new system that we introduced with the smuggler class with cover. And cover that we've implemented is pretty cool in the game. It adds a whole new dynamic to range combat.
Tell us even more about the combat. Any kind of cool. I mean, obviously there have got to be lightsabers in a Star Wars game, but what other weapons and what other goodies can we expect to see?
Well, we introduced the Stormtrooper class, and the Stormtrooper class has all the heavy armor and the heavy equipment, and it's really cool to see the big guns that are available and the bounty hunter and all the tools that class has to play. And there's, again, with Jedi and Bounty Hunter and all the other different classes we're going to have in the game, it's going to add a whole new dynamic effect for combat.
And again, we didn't want standard MMO combat. We wanted Star Wars combat. So we're not trying to fit into somebody else's recipe of how a game should be built as far as an MMO. What we're trying to do is make sure we're realizing a Star Wars experience first and foremost. Fun and believability of the combat trumps everything.
And again, Star Wars is about combat and conflict.
Now, I know you guys didn't bring any gameplay to show us this time around, but I think you might have a trailer.
Yes.
I don't know if we're able to show that trailer right now, so we can maybe give... No? Oh, we already rolled the trailer. See, I missed it. I was too busy chatting.
That's all right.
But that's all right. Now, we've gotten a little about combat. How about leveling up and progression in the game? Can you talk a little bit about how that's going to work?
Well, progression, will be driven by your class story, but I think that the cool thing about it is it's not your standard MMO fare of vacuum up a bunch of quests and then go run around and try to do them. You're really always doing things for a purpose and a reason, and it will make sense to you in the context of what kind of character you've decided to play, and that's our goal. We wanted to get away from grind is when you have to do something that you've done before. What we're trying to say is, you're always going to be doing things. Yes, you're going to understand what you're doing, but there's going to be new things that you're doing, and we hope to get away from the grind idea completely in the MMO context, because we think that limits the audience for MMOs. It's not just the fact you have to pay, it's the fact that a lot of it is repetitious.
And we're trying, again, your story that you go through, your decisions matter in the game.
And, a lot of other games do story. A lot of standalone games do story. A lot of MMOs do story. But the real question is it compelling? Is it in context? Does it make sense? And you hear this thing, we're doing story, and everybody's going to go, ho hum, so what? I hate game story. Well, all I can say is there's a huge difference between a good or a great story and a regular story.
Right.
So a great book will draw you in and make you feel like you're there. And that's what we're shooting for with every scene that we do in Star Wars: The Old Republic.
I get more and more curious when I think about how the decisions that I affect in a massively multiplayer game are going to affect my progression. Does that mean that, for example, I'm going to be able to close off areas that would be open to me otherwise if I made a decision in one way rather than in another?
In some ways that's true. In other ways, making decisions, all decisions have consequences. So it doesn't mean that you can make a decision that kills your character off for good. It means that you will have consequences. If you decide to go down the Sith route, to go down the dark side route, whether you're a Sith or a Jedi, if you go dark side, that will have consequences on your character, on the story options that are available to you, and in the end, where you get as a character at the end of your story arc. So there's huge, you have control is what we want to give to the players. I mean, there's no point in giving you a story unless you have that interactive control over it. And that's part of what sets BioWare games apart from other story-based games.
Now, surely in the Star Wars universe, you must be able to, be on the forces of good versus the forces of evil. Are you ready to talk about any player versus player component of the game at this point? Or?
We'll have player versus player component in our game, but we're not ready yet to talk about that, because when we want to talk about something, it's in the game, it's iterated on, and we can really fully discuss it. We don't want to hype it if we don't really know what it's going to be like, but we will have PvP.
Many games talk about, kind of talk the talk before they walk the walk. We kind of like to have it working before we start talking about what it is, because it might change. BioWare games undergo a huge amount of iteration before the public ever gets to see them. And we want to make sure that we bring our best to the public, not, throw out one of our good ideas and then find out it was a bad idea later.
Now, what's the time period of the game, and will we be running into any familiar faces by chance?
No, the time period is 2,700 years before the movies, right? And it's 300 years after the original KOTOR. So you won't be running into...
Well, you might see a few cameos of characters that could be around at that particular time.
Yep.
We are in that universe. We are, obviously we are very intimate with that universe. We are being true to the canon, and of course we're expanding the canon at the same time.
Does it make it a little bit easier to start with a kind of a blank slate like that?
You betcha. Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't have all the constraints of the canon around the movies.
No, but the nice thing about this, so when you do an MMO, you need a lot more degrees of freedom to really bring a great experience to the players. You know, if it's really on the rails, then there's no discovery, it's not that interesting. And we really want to not only be familiar to the players, we want to give them stuff that they've never seen and that can really kind of, you know, excite them, re-excite them about the Star Wars franchise.
Now, are there any elements of KOTOR that perhaps have crossed over in any way at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there are lots of elements and settings of KOTOR that are in our game. Absolutely. There'll be cameo appearances of famous characters as well, so.
See, now you have me excited.
Yep.
That's not fair. What else should we expect to see? We've talked about combat, we've talked about progression, but surely you've got something else that you want to talk about to get us even more excited than we already are.
I think that what you can count on is you'll see, if you're an MMO player, you'll see all the key elements of an MMO. If you're an RPG player, you're going to see all the elements you would expect from a BioWare RPG. So we're not, and if you're a Star Wars player, we're not going to miss anything that a Star Wars game should have.
Right.
So the key is we're trying to give it all. We don't want to shortchange the experience for anyone. We want them to come into this and play their Star Wars fantasy and really live it.
Right. It's about the player. It's about living the Star Wars fantasy, about being a bounty hunter and like.
Or being a smuggler, or being a Jedi, or being a Sith, or being the ones that we haven't talked about yet.
Yes.
Well, guys, thanks for dropping by and got us even more excited than we already were about Star Wars: The Old Republic. We're going to see it when?
Coming soon to, oh no.
Yeah.
So,
We're working on it. We're iterating on it. We're a while out. We're a while out.
So a long time ahead,
well, I think
but in the current galaxy at least.
It's a way out, ways out. But I think the key thing is, it's a BioWare game. You're going to see it when it's ready to rock.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Well, on that note, it looks like we've actually got some more Star Wars stuff to show you, so we're going to head out to the show floor and see what there is out there.